All right, so sorry for the lateness of this video, but kind of was deciding how I wanted to approach it. We've talked about systems of equations. Systems of equations. And that's what we've been looking at right now. We've talked about the fact that you could solve a system using the graphing method. Using the graphing method. The problem was this only really worked if your numbers came out nicely. If it landed on the intersection of an x and y, that was nice. But if it didn't, then we kind of had a problem. So then we talked about substitution. And substitution worked well. Most of the time, I would say substitution worked well. There were a few times where substitution, isn't exactly the easiest one to use. So maybe there's a better way. Of course there's a better way. That is known as the elimination method. Ta-da! The elimination method. Now, bear with me. And let me explain how the elimination method works. But let's start with a very, very simple example. Let's say I have the equations x plus y equals 5 and x minus y equals 1. You will notice right off the bat that these two equations are in standard form. So substitution, I could solve one of the equations, but that really does make it a little bit more difficult. So instead, I love the fact that they're both in standard form, and I'm going to do something kind of sneaky with these. And basically, all I'm going to do is I'm going to take these two equations and I'm going to add them together. Now you're probably going, why would you want to add them together? Well, watch what happens when I do that. X plus x, well, that obviously is 2x. A positive y and a negative y cancel each other out. Ooh. Equals 5 plus 1, which is 6. Now I have an equation with one variable. If I divide both sides by 2, I come out that x is equal to 3. And now I need to find what y is. Well, that's easy. Take my x equals 3 and plug that into one of the equations. So I get 3 plus y equals 5. Subtract 3 from both sides, and I get y equals 2. So the ordered pair is 3, 2. And if you think about it, carefully, 3 was x plus 2, which is y, is equal to 5, and 3 minus 2 is equal to 1. So it does in fact work in both equations. Okay, so I'm going to give you one here. So let's say I give you 2x plus y equals 5 and 3x minus y equals 0. Would you pause the video and I want you to try this question and then we'll go over it. Okay, let's see how you did. If you added your two equations together, you would have found 5x is equal to 5. You divide both sides by 5, and you get x is equal to 1. And there we go. And then I still need to find my y, so I'll plug the x in for x, and I get 2 times 1, plus y equals 5. That's 2 plus y equals 5. Subtract 2, y equals 3. So my ordered pair is 1, 3. Now, here's an interesting question for you. 4x plus 2y equals 6, and 5x plus 2y equals 8. So, if you were to do this problem, you would start by adding the two equations together. But if I add these two equations together, I would get 9x plus, 2y and 2y is 4y. That doesn't help me much, does it? So let's undo that for a second, because adding those two together doesn't eliminate one of the variables. And that's the whole point, is to eliminate one of the variables. But what I could do is manipulate one of the equations. So for example, I could multiply the second equation by -1. So the first equation stays the same, 4x plus 2y equals 6. And when I multiply by -1 to the second equation, I get -5x minus 2y equals -8, because I multiply everything by the -1. Now, when I add the equations together, I get -x, those cancel because they're opposite signs, equals -2. -x equals -2, divide both sides by -1, and I get x is equal to 2. Plug that in. 4 times 2 plus 2y equals 6. That's 8 plus 2y equals 6. Subtract 8, and you get 2y equals -2. Divide by 2, and I get y equals -1. So my answer is 2, -1. All right. I'm going to give you this problem here. 2x plus 3y equals 10, and 3x plus y equals 1. Now, I'm going to tell you, my hint is that you don't have to multiply just by -1, but you could multiply by other numbers if you want. I'm going to leave this right where it is. I want you to try this, and then during our Zoom meeting, we're going to go over how to do this. Also, please look for a special notice about the Zoom meeting in Google Classroom, because we are going to be doing something very special tomorrow also. So please look for that. Try do this problem and bring your answer to the Zoom meeting tomorrow.